Constitution since the mid-'80s. He's a small business owner, married with 2 sons and 2 granddaughters. He's a founding member of the Locke and Smith Foundation, a group of dedicated citizens that read every past piece of legislation and score the voting records of every elected official that votes in Jefferson City. The end result of this is the awarding of the granite plaque to recognize the most constitutionally voting member of the State House and State Senate. As far as we know, this organization is the only one in any state which does the exhaustive research they do on legislation to determine whether it violates the state constitution. Tom is an expert in government history and early government, along with everything he's doing currently. But tonight's conversation is going to be about legislation and its constitutionality. So what a great endeavor. Please welcome Tom Martz.
Do I have to hold the button down?
Take it off.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You overuse that word expert.
I think
I am by no means an expert.
you kind of have to almost eat it, yeah.
Well, I know these people can hear me without this microphone.
You gotta
but
put
that's
it
okay.
up to your mouth and do your sexy
Well,
voice.
if Diane gives you heck,
Yeah.
then
See,
you
what
have
you
to
what
use
you
it.
really need is one of those little lapel things that you put here on your collar so somebody don't have to hold a microphone.
We're accepting donations.
As somebody who listens online often, I appreciate the mic.
Or mount a mic that somebody can.
Well,
Do you want a mic stand?
No. Now he said one of my
Democracy.
least favorite words, which is democracy.
Oh, that's right.
There's also another least favorite word of mine, which is called constitutional right. And I hear people use them interchangingly all the time. You don't, as was pointed out at the very beginning of this meeting, you don't have rights because government is instituted. You had those rights prior to government. When somebody tells me that they have a Second Amendment, a right to possess a firearm, I ask them, how was this country founded? We went to war, right? That was before the Constitution was written, which means firearms existed before the Constitution was written, which means firearms is a right without the Constitution being written. But what I thought I would do this evening is, and with Jan's assistance, we're going to go through some of the pieces of legislation that was passed in Jefferson City this year. So you all can, and there's a constitution on each table, so if one of you would grab a constitution and the other one would grab a constitution, somebody go to Article 1, and somebody go to Article 3, Section 21 and 23 at each table. Now, in order to navigate the Senate's website, especially if you're just looking at bills that made it to the House, this is the easiest way to do it. You go to senate.mo.gov, go to legislation, scroll down to where it says bill status reports over there in the far corner. No, over there. Right there, bill status reports. Okay, now we're going to go to all Senate bills first read in the House. And the first bill we're going to look at is Senate Bill 20. Now don't go to it yet. You'll notice it states right here that it modifies provisions relating to retirement. You also notice that it was signed by the governor. And you'll also know who the sponsor is. So go ahead and click on Senate Bill 20. Now, if you'll go up to where it says All Actions, and click on that. Okay. The very first time this bill was introduced, it was pre-filed on December the 1st of 2022. Titling is very important in a piece of legislation. If you look at Article 3, Section 21 and 23, you'll see why titling is very important for a piece of legislation. So how do we get what the original title is? Well, if you look at the definition in one of my favorite books. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend it. This is an 1828 Webster's Dictionary. I also recommend this one as well. It's a 1755 Samuel Johnson Dictionary. Now, of course, most of the people in the legislature will use their own definitions for words, and we got to get them out of that habit. So if we go over here to S27, that should link us to the very first time, and it doesn't. You're going to have to scroll down, Jan, to find where it was introduced. Senate Bill 20. Keep scrolling. When you see Senate Bill 20, stop. Normally when you click on that link, if your computer's set up, it automatically goes to that page. That's HB 8. So they're already looking at House bills on this day. I think it was on page, let me look. I think it was on page 28, if I'm not mistaken.
There's only 13 pages to this.
Well, then that won't work either.
Let's look here. Wait a minute. I'm in front.
Go back. Oh, it's on page 27.
Where do you want me to click here?
Yeah, click on S27.
But that's where I was. There's only 13 pages.
Okay, well, for some reason, it's
Why is
not
that
doing what it's
doing
supposed to be doing.
That's, we're on the first read. That's
Okay,
what-
we'll go to this link, Senate Bill, page 141. We'll see if they changed the title yet. Aha, Senate Bill 20, scroll up. Nope, down, sorry. I'm looking at this the wrong way. Okay, stop.
I saw it. Right here.
So they assigned the bill to the Veterans, Military Affairs, and Pension Systems. Why? Because the bill was relating to pensions. Okay, scroll down. Oh, I don't have to hold that button the whole time, do I?
No, you don't. When am I looking for here?
Keep going up.
Do you want me to get to page 140? That's it.
I don't know why
Why
your
is this
computer's
not
doing
doing
it.
it?
I don't know why your computer's doing that.
That's like 14 of 14, but it says 149.
Okay, let me do this on my phone. Okay, Missouri Constitution states in Article 3, Section 21 that no bill shall be so amended in its passage through either house as to change its original purpose. The original purpose of Senate Bill 20 was solely relating to the Board of Trustees of the Missouri Department of Transportation and Highway Patrol Employees Retirement System. So the bill is specific to the Missouri Department of Transportation and the Highway Patrol Employees Retirement System. That's all the bill can be about. That is the original title. The reason we know it's the original title is because in reality don't click on anything. On 1/4, it was first read, and it was first read with that title. On 1/5, which you do not see on here, the next morning they come in to their positions of authority, and they have to approve the prior day's journal. If there's anything wrong with the prior days, or they're approving yet the day before its journal, if there's anything wrong, they have to bring it up at that point. So when they vote to approve that journal, they are voting to approve the titling of Senate Bill 20 and any bill that they brought up on that day. So what happened in this bill is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it actually went to the House with its original title. The House, if you go to all actions, okay, you are. So they third read and passed it right here. It was a straight through bill. There was no amendments offered. Then the House first reads it. So the House agreed to the original title. Then the House second reads it, they send it to the pension system, it goes to legislative oversight, it gets placed on the informal calendar, and this is where the problem starts. I think you guys recognize the last name of the individual who is recommending the amendments.
Hovis?
And I'm not going to ask you to click on that link because I don't know where it's going to take you.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm on my.
But what ends up happening through this process is they change the title. So they broaden the scope, because what they do is they delete the following: the Board of Trustees of the Missouri Department of Transportation and Highway Patrol Employees Retirement System. So basically they just completely eliminated the whole title, and they retitled it Retirement Systems. How broad of a scope does retirement systems at the state level now make this bill? It's unlimited. If there's a retirement system that the state has any authority over, it now opens it up to be put into this bill. It's what they call log rolling, or Christmas tree bills, whatever you want to title it. So it's amended, and finally it comes down where it goes, the Senate refuses to amend these. Then it goes through a conference committee. So the House appoints Hovis, O'Donnell, West, Brown, and Clemens. You can see who the Senate introduced, put it back into. The Senate offers a conference committee report, which is then third read and passed by the Senate, which means they approve of the piece of legislation. And then the House adopts the same CCR. If you read Article 3, Section 21, Article 3, Section 23, this bill, Senate Bill 20, is a direct violation of that section of the Constitution. So anybody who voted yes for this, it's an unconstitutional vote. Anybody who voted no, and I don't care what their reason was to vote no, it's the constitutional vote. One senator, I do believe, voted no on it. Can anyone name who that individual is? Now, Mike, at the end of the legislative session, introduced about 15 or 16 letters to the governor challenging pieces of legislation that were introduced. If you would, go back. Okay, scroll down to Senate Bill 51. Okay, the original title, modifies provisions relating to physical therapists. And it tells you a little bit about what the bill does. I caution you not to actually I caution you not to look at the summaries as gospel. Sometimes if a bill has been filed year after year after year, they'll use the summaries from 4 years ago, and it literally would have nothing to do with this current piece of legislation. What Senate Bill 51 was doing, and we believe this to be a constitutional piece of legislation, was it was allowing you, the consumer, to go to a physical therapist without having to get permission from your doctor. Which means that in order, before this bill passed, before you were allowed to go to a physical therapist on your own dime, you had to go to your doctor and get permission, and then your doctor would grant you the permission to go to a physical therapist. How did that even get passed? It's my money, it's my body, it's my choice. If I want to go see a physical therapist, there's absolutely no reason why it is that I have to go to a doctor to get his permission to seek out physical therapy. However, What this will also do is it only allows you, the physical therapist shall notify the provider of continuing physical therapy every 10 visits or 30 days unless the provider directs otherwise. So the doctor still has a modicum of authority over you and your availability of using a physical therapist. I don't recall anyone in this room signing up for the government telling them what they can and cannot do medically related. And I also hate to say it, but in order to get bad legislation off the books, you have to introduce good legislation to get it off the books. So sometimes people make the case, I just wish they'd go to Jefferson City and do nothing. I like that too, but I would really love to see them actually go to Jefferson City and get rid of bad laws. Everyone in this room has heard the phrase, we're a nation of laws. That's half a sentence. Who has Article 1, Section 2?
Everybody should know that one.
If you read what Article 1, Section 2 of the Missouri Constitution says, and I'm not going to quote it verbatim because I can't, but it states that government is instituted to secure your right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the industry of your own gains. And if it does not do that, it is a failure in its chief design. If I'm driving 70 miles an hour through Cape Girardeau at 3 o'clock in the morning and there's not another soul on the road and I get pulled over for speeding, whose rights was I violating? Nobody's. But the guy with the blue and red lights on the back of his vehicle will say, well, he's just enforcing the law. Well, that law has no confines within that state constitution. So we've gotten to a point where we have allowed our legislative body to introduce, and this is years and years and years and years and years, to introduce pieces of legislation which go against and are violating our rights. Senate Bill 190.
Go to that one.
Yeah. I talked about this one on the radio show that I do every Friday morning, and I got so much hate mail it wasn't even funny. This act provides provisions relating to the taxation of seniors. What else does Article 1, Section 2 say? Equal application of the law. Someday I'm going to be a senior, and I'm not going to mind it when I get there. However, I'm not a senior now. So how would you do a piece of legislation like this? You could do it incrementally. You could make it so that property taxes decrease 10% for everybody who owns property. Then 20%, then 30%, then 40%, and eventually, if Bill Eigel gets his way, eliminate it completely, which I'm all in favor of. But the fact that this bill is specific to seniors is a violation of the rule book. And those are the rules by which the people in Jefferson City have to abide by. However, they decide that they don't need to abide by them. I have a client who has a chess set, one of the most beautiful chess sets I've seen. The pieces are that tall. And it's the colonist, and it's the American Revolutionary Soldiers. And we were playing chess one day, and his pawn takes my bishop. In 2 moves, his pawn now moves like my bishop and wipes out my queen. That's not the way the game of chess is played. He said, in my house, it's my rules. In my house, whatever piece that pawn takes, now it gains that superpower. That's the fastest I've ever been obliterated in a game of chess in my life. However, next time I go to him, I'm playing transgender chess. All of my pieces can be whatever it is that I say they are. And I will wipe him out in a matter of no time. But you have to be aware of what it is that they're doing so you can call them up and say, hey, you can't pass that because Article 1, Section 2 of the Missouri Constitution says equal application of the law. And it does mean equal. But they have this mindset that equal means 65 to 75 as long as everybody in that age bracket are treated equally. That's equal. People 35 to 55 as long as everybody in that age bracket is treated equally. Senate Bill 190. What else can we go to? Anybody have any questions? Any complaints?
Hey, how about, the one?
I don't see how you get anything done. That's confusing.
It's not confusing to them, though. And I hope that it also does not get confusing to you, because I would like to see at some point, and I was talking to Brenda about that this morning, each one of you in reality should follow at least one or two pieces of legislation through the entire system. So you learn how to navigate the Senate's website. You learn how to navigate the House's website. There are other areas on this website that you should be made aware of, but that takes a lot longer than an hour meeting because of how much there is. You need to know when it's going to committee, where the committee's at, who's on the committee. And there are other people in this state that are better versed at that than I am. Go to, what was the gold and silver bill? Senate Bill 100.
Oh, yeah.
Then you can tear apart Holly Reader if you want.
I have no desire to talk about Holly Reader. Okay, just leave it here on this page.
All right.
So we're going to create and modify provisions relating to gold and silver. It was Eigel's bill, and I'm going to scroll over here. So the current bill summary is what it ended as. So we have custody of gold and silver by the state treasurer. We have taxation of mediums of exchange, so still we're within the confines of gold and silver. We have legal tender, which is still about gold and silver. And then we have this. Can anyone tell me what digital mining has to do with gold and silver? And what this was doing is it was preventing utility companies from charging you a higher rate on your electricity when you're mining Bitcoin on your computer. Now, I'm not well versed on Bitcoin, so the concept of digital mining and me, it just goes right over my head. But you know what I know? I know digital mining doesn't have a darn thing to do with gold and silver. So when it left the Senate, it was fine. It gets to the House, and Representative Cristo Finelli, I believe, put that in. So it specifically states a political subdivision shall not limit the sound decibels generated from home digital asset mining other than limits set for sound pollution.
What on earth?
It imposed any requirement on a digital asset mining business that is not also a requirement for data centers in such political subdivision. They are prohibited from rezoning the area in which a digital asset mining business is located without complying with applicable state and local zoning laws. And still I'm left going, what does any of this have to do with gold and silver? This was in reality, one of the most followed pieces of legislation in the state last year. If you read the United States Constitution, it specifically states that gold and silver are legal tender. Go to Jefferson City or go to your county and try to pay for your taxes in gold and find out what happens. I'm sorry, it's legal tender. It says so in the United States Constitution. Now, we're going to try this again to get this passed. Hopefully, somebody within the confines of the House understands that gold and silver does not mean Bitcoin. And if you read this very carefully, it also discussed the provisions of central bank digital currency in the same piece of legislation.
Tom,
Yes?
was the CBDC in the original piece
No.
that Igel put out? It was what was added in the House?
It was what was added in the House. Igel's bill was,
Just gold and silver.
yeah, it was just gold and silver. They added, if you want to scroll whichever way it is to get to the top, they added this section about the treasurer. So, yeah, custody of gold and silver by state treasurer. I believe that's the section that was added in the Senate when it was amended. But it's still about gold and silver. Now, in order to get this, they actually had to change the title so it was no longer about gold and silver. And I forget exactly what they changed the title to or from, but I will look that up real quick. Oh, maybe Mike don't have that because it didn't come back to the Senate. This bill died in the House, and the reason it died in the House is because the leadership in the House opened it up to floor discussions, of which only Democrats were predominantly allowed to speak. There was some of the weirdest discussions I've ever heard in my life. They didn't want this bill to pass because of MAGA gold. I don't know what MAGA gold is, but according to Democrats, it exists. They also did not want it to pass because of Nazi gold. Well, anyone who's ever researched history to determine what happened with the gold that was in Germany during the regime of the Nazis, that wouldn't be a thing either. But they had every reason under the sun that you can possibly think of that didn't have anything to do with anything on why it is that they were filibustering this bill in the House. And I know you can't filibuster in the House, but if you were able to watch the meeting, you could tell there was a filibuster going on. Every single Democrat who stood up was called to speak. No Republicans. Who controls the House of Representatives in Missouri? The Republicans do. I've often said the Republicans have three different parties within their own confines. They have the leftist lunatic liberal side, they got the wishy-washy Charlie Brown moderate side, and then they have the conservative / constitutional application, of which I only put one person in the constitutional application, and that's Mike Moon. The rest of them are more conservative leaning. I don't know exactly what conservative means anymore, because I heard Lincoln Huff proclaim that he was a conservative. And if you think you guys are in bad shape, I'll tell you who represents me in Jeff City.
Oh, no.
Lincoln Huff and Crystal Quaid.
Oh,
At least you've got Holly Reed. She's
At
a little
least.
bit to the right of Lincoln.
prove it.
Never mind. So
Better
what
believe
you're
it.
saying is basically that the Speaker of the House didn't want this bill to go through, and so he just let the Democrats have a conversation, and then it just didn't go anywhere.
Correct. There is more, if you want, for lack of a better term, there is more power given to the speaker in that one position than what that speaker should have. no speaker should have complete control of a House Assembly. There has got to be, and I know HJR 11 or H11 or whatever the heck it was, there were people who tried to make, and there were some people who were successful in making changes. But in order to flip that system completely upside down, if you remember, they've already voted on who the next House Speaker is.
How can they do that?
Because they do not want the freshman legislators to have a say. Supposedly, within the confines of the rules, the leadership has to be determined before the assembly is actually sworn in. So they vote for them that far out. That can be changed as a House rule. When we started reviewing legislation in 2010, I think it was 2014, that if the freshmen, and I didn't realize it back then either, that freshmen didn't have a vote. But if they did, if the freshmen, the juniors, no, freshmen, sophomore, and juniors would have gotten together, they had all the numbers to completely throw the system into a quagmire. And I'm happy with quagmire. I'm happy with government not being able to do anything. I'm happy when DC does nothing. COVID was the best thing ever to happen to Jefferson City, because they didn't do a whole lot. And Mike Moon and I've gotten into this discussion. I've often told him, look, I'd be happy to pay you for the time that you're in Jeff City. Just go pass the budget and go home. The faster you guys are home, the more liberty I have to continue on. As soon as they swear that oath, and by the way, the oath is somewhere in that Constitution too. When you're face to face with your elected official, ask them if they deem their oath as a moral obligation or a legal obligation. And I'd be interested to hear what their responses are. I have cards up here that you can willingly take. Jan has my contact info. If you text me, let me know who it is that I'm talking to so I don't accidentally get you confused with a customer who's already in my phone, because I don't want to start blabbing about water treatment systems if you're asking me a Missouri Constitution question. But there are certain things and certain times that you need to know what it is that your elected is doing, what they stand for. I have a rule that says if you do not do anything in your own personal life to secure my right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, which means going to a health department meeting, city council meeting, county commissioner meeting, library meeting, I don't care what it is. As long as you've gone there and said, hey, you can't do this, that at least gives me a little bit of a mindset that you are the person that you say you are when you say that you're going to go to Jefferson City. And even at that, sometimes I have been wrong. But if you're one of those people who all of a sudden get off the couch, put your name on the ballot and say, I'm going to go to Jefferson City and defend your liberty, to me, you have no street credibility. So far, all you've done is watch football on TV and drink beer. That doesn't tell me a thing about what it is that you're going to do when you get to Jefferson City. But the elected need to proclaim that morally, that is what their oath means to them. I bet you if you ask Mike Moon, he'll tell you his oath is moral. You ask Dean Plocker, you're going to get it's legal. There's nothing in that Constitution that allows you to throw a person in jail for violating the oath. There should be. I think it's Article 3, Section 15, that does have a comment in there about not following your oath. The problem is that there's no teeth in it.
It is 15. Do you want to read it? It's highlighted. I must have been to a Tom Martz Constitution.
Yeah, you must have stolen my Constitution. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Missouri, and faithfully perform the duties of my office, and that I will not knowingly, that's an important word, crap,
Oh, man.
not knowingly,
Not knowingly.
boy, this is a terrible
Not
meeting.
knowingly. 15, 3, 15. Not knowingly.
That's better. Not knowingly receive directly or indirectly any money or other valuable thing for the performance of this or non-performance of any act or duty pertaining to my office other than the compensation allowed by law. How do they get around that statement? What was created to allow them to have money funneled to them through different various sources?
The PAC.
PACs. Most elected officials have a PAC attached to them. It's no different whether you have a PAC funneling money into your campaign or whether you have, I don't know, an email server company that's willing to put $80,000 into your PAC, as long as that email service is used as constituent services for everybody in the state of Missouri. I was taught that was a bribe. Most people who have a law degree would disagree with me. Legally versus morally. Now it also says any senator or representative refusing to take said oath or affirmation shall be deemed to have vacated his office, and any member convicted of having violated his oath or affirmation shall be deemed guilty of perjury and be forever disqualified from holding any office or trust or profit in this state. Who enforces that?
Nobody.
You're right, but who's supposed to enforce that?
The secretary?
What happens, let's say that you two get together and say, I believe that my state representative, I don't know who it is, so don't tell me. I believe that my state representative, let's say it's Ploker, for instance, Plocker, whatever his name is. I believe that Plocker the Blocker has violated his oath of office because he was willing to, and it was shown that he was in the process of taking money from this. Now this is all assumed and alleged, by the way.
Right.
That he was going to have money from this company come into his campaign, either directly or indirectly through a PAC, if the legislature would approve the use of a constituent service from Fireside Chat. Where does that go? Who should it go to? I would think the highest legal authority in the state,
No, the Attorney General.
the Attorney General, should have some sort of parameters to look at what the case is that you're bringing them, but then I'm not aware of what happens to it after that. To be honest, I've been following the Attorney General for years and years and years, and the only time I ever see them do something is when they decided to run for higher office. Well, I'm going to sue somebody because I want to be a U.S. Senator. Well, I'm going to sue this person over here because I want to be a U.S. Senator. Well, I'm going to sue this person over here because now I want to do something else. I want to go to be Congress. I don't actually see them within the parameters of their job actually holding any elected official at the state level accountable to the document that they swore an oath to. I would assume that is their job. But I'm also probably looking at this the wrong way. I'm not looking at it the way they are. Morally speaking, I believe the Attorney General is the individual who should be the one who enforces that.
So
But
in
they-
that hypothetical situation, there is an ethics committee that is reviewing that story. And so did they make recommendation to the Attorney General? Does it have to go through them first, or?
They probably do, but ethics and politician used in the same sentence together never works. There was, yes, sir.
Some office holders have to be bonded. That is, they have to pay an insurance too.
Correct.
They could be sued.
Correct.
Can you reiterate what he just said that you're assenting to so that everybody can hear, please?
He's talking about how some elected officials are bonded in order to keep their official position. For the last 15 years, I have been on this bonding bandwagon for law enforcement. I think every law enforcement officer, including the Attorney General, should be bonded. The reason being is your bond is like insurance. Matter of fact, if you've been following the news lately, Rebecca Varney from Edgar Springs successfully sued Edgar Springs, Missouri, because they prohibited her from actually attending city council meetings or county commissioner meetings, whatever they are. So she hired Dave Rowland to represent her, and the county has to pay his $40,000, $440,000, whatever it is, legal fees. But the problem with that is that's the taxpayers paying for the insurance to allow these morons to violate their oath of office, and nothing is done to them. She was awarded, I think, $150. She wasn't in this for the money. She was in this to get government to function in the correct manner that it's supposed to function. But when they do wrong, they're proven to do wrong, they're still able to sit in that position of power or that position of authority, and nothing ever happens to them. Penny Hubbard and the Hubbard family pretty much dominate the St. Louis election scene. Years ago, it was found that they committed that. You're on YouTube, so better not say it.
Well, we can.
You know, when you submit things at a certain time and you count them to figure out who it is that's victorious, I got to make sure that they don't get banned off of YouTube. It was shown that her husband came in at a later than normal date with a few boxes of what was considered the absentee people. I hope that don't get you banned. So they had to completely redo the election. Oops, sorry.
But you didn't say the F word, so. And I mean that as the frog.
YouTube is one of those places where I don't want to be the reason that you get your first strike.
Well, we'll see.
Unless
Yeah,
you've
we
already
don't-
had
we've
your
already
first
had
strike. Okay.
Not
I don't want to be your second strike or you're out. But these are things, and that whole family still controls that entire area for that board. Nothing was ever done to them individually for violating the law. There seems to be this system of they versus them. We're the they, they're the them, and they've decided that they get to do stuff like this. This is why we are not a nation of laws. If we were a nation of laws, Senate Bill 100 would actually be law because it's constitutional, and there would have never been put into it digital mining or central digital bank currency. Now, my fear is that had this bill actually gotten back to the Senate with those two unconstitutional items, I believe this would have been passed into law, and it would have been signed by the governor, which would have opened up the state to central bank digital currency, based on the way this was worded. For every one item that's in a bill that's beneficial, that somebody wants, there's something bad in that piece of legislation that somebody else wants. And then there could be something else in it that's bad that somebody else wants. And by the time it gets to the governor's desk and he signs it, not only do you get the good thing, but you get the 10 areas that should have never been passed by law.
So actually Plockman did us a favor holding it in the House of Representatives since that bad amendment was put on there.
I am almost of the belief that the whole reason that was put into there
Because of
was to
Plockman.
make it so it was a court challenge.
That's another whole.
Now, that's my opinion, and my opinion only. But the individual who submitted that amendment is actually smart enough to know that that part does not belong in that bill. And why they do those things, I have, you almost have to sit there and ask yourself, is that representative mining Bitcoin? And is the electric company that provides his service charging him more while he's sitting there digitally mining? Does anybody in here do Bitcoin? Explain digital mining to me, please.
Gosh. So,
How does the computer do what it does in order to create Bitcoin?
so Bitcoin is a decentralized currency, meaning there's no central authority. No one can issue it. There's only 21 million in existence. There'll never be any more.
How do you know that?
Because that's just, it's computer, it's numbers. There's no way to crack it. It's 21 million, never be any more. And how you mine it is basically when someone wants to do a transaction, the miner blocks do that transaction for you rather than a bank. So it's your own bank.
So how did the Bitcoin come into being to begin with?
It's a
Satoshi
line.
Nakamoto,
It's a line on a ledger.
yeah, it
And
is.
then-
It's a
and then
public ledger.
all the digital miners are out anywhere in the world, and they're just checking that ledger.
Satoshi Nakamoto is a pseudonym. They don't know who created it.
I'm still lost, but that's okay.
Thank you.
See, I think in all sincerity, one of the things that
You should
scares
look into
people
it. It's
with
pretty
Bitcoin
interesting.
is because you don't have it in your hand. But when I go to the bank and I use my debit card, I don't have money in my hand either. So to me, it's the same
Yep.
kind of a concept.
Yes.
Which also leads us to central digital bank currency. Once that becomes implemented, unless we set up SB 100, you're all going to have central bank digital currency, and you'll have no other mechanism by which to pay anything.
So you need an off-ramp.
Unless you know who it is that you're getting your meat from, and you can barter. Who you get your eggs from, and you can barter. Who you get your milk from, and you can barter. But we need to be able to stop, and the only person I've seen do this now for the last 5 years religiously is Mike. He will, at the end of, can you go back? Can you go back the whole way to legislation? Yeah, go back. Okay, hang on. Yeah, go back
We're
again.
in the Senate. You want House?
Go to scroll up. Scroll up again.
That's it.
Oh, that's it?
That's it. I'm just under Senate demo. I'm not under.
You really need an Apple computer. That way I know what I'm looking
Oh,
at.
geez. Do you want me to go to, just?
No, I'm
vote.gov?
looking for the journals.
So,
Just the journals.
right here.
Okay, go to that.
See?
Okay, scroll up. Go up. Go to day 70 and see what pops up. 70.
I'm looking. Day
Far left-hand
69.
corner as I look at the screen.
Far left hand, I see day 69.
Go over.
Where? I see 69.
It's
Oh,
above
right
where
here,
it
day
says-
70. Gotcha. All right.
Okay, scroll up. Well, slow down. Go down. Okay, whoa, stop, right there. Okay. On day 70, here's another one. Senate Bill 45 allows for expanding Medicaid to women who have had an abortion. Based upon this fact, I urge Governor Parson to veto, yada, 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 Senate Bill 40 and 90. So the language ensured that Missouri taxpayers would not be unjustly burdened with the responsibility of giving aid to a woman who murdered her developing, yet to be born child. Unfortunately, the language was removed from the bill prior to being truly agreed and finally passed. And revised statute Missouri 1.205 clearly states that Missouri believes that life begins at a conception. Yes, that is a law. If we truly believe that a developing human baby is deserving of all the protected afforded person outside of the womb, we must hold that only those who value life will be extended benefits aimed at pregnant women during and after pregnancy. So then we got Senate Bill 70. This bill was relating to counseling interstate compacts. A Senate committee substitute changed the bill's title to relating to professional counselors. Now, this bill originally did deal with professional counselors and an interstate compact. What this is allowing people to do and why it doesn't work this way is beyond me too. If you have a license to be a professional counselor in Oklahoma and you move to Missouri, for some reason you leave your brain in Oklahoma, according to the state of Missouri, because you cannot be a professional counselor in Missouri unless Missouri has said that you are a professional counselor, so you have to go through their training. So what this was doing is creating a interstate compact which allows any state who signs on to the compact where if you're licensed in Illinois, you move to Missouri, Illinois and Missouri are part of this interstate compact, your license in Illinois is transferred over to Missouri. Just like it would be as if you moved to Illinois with your Missouri driver's license and you handed it to them and they give you an Illinois license. Yes?
This particular issue on the compact goes even farther in that it establishes an organization which would be housed in Washington, D.C. And one representative from each state that is signed onto the compact comes in and makes rules that are considered law.
Correct.
Or to be responded to as law. And those participating have to be fingerprinted.
Yes.
They have to have their DNA. I mean, it's ridiculous. I can't believe we signed this.
Oh, what you brought up was you brought up something about my favorite bill, and I don't know what the number was. We have medicinal and recreational marijuana in the state of Missouri now, right? Article 14 of the state constitution. For the last 2 years, our legislative body have been trying to pass a bill that requires you, if you work in the cannabis industry, you have to go through a federal background check. What's wrong with that picture? Where is cannabis still illegal at? At the federal level. So if you create a law which says if you work in the cannabis industry, you have to go through a federal background check, are you or are you not creating a complete database for the federal authorities to come in and just start picking people off and arresting them?
I'm not totally against that, no. I'm joking.
There are times when we read these pieces of legislation, you sit there and scratch your head and go, what are they thinking? You know, we wouldn't want that to happen if it was CCWs. Although we did have a governor who did give the list of the CCWs to the federal government. There was a state representative by the name of Nick Marshall, who at the time was a 6 or 7 time recipient of our Granite Plaque Award for voting constitutionally. He drew up articles of impeachment for Jay Nixon, and leadership said, we don't want to go down that road. Why not? If the man is in violation of his oath of office, let's go down that road. Because if it starts happening, maybe the next one will go, maybe I don't want to go there. Yes?
So, Tom, your organization, Locke and Smith, or Locke, what is it?
It's named after John Locke and Adam Smith.
And is that a subscription on email or?
Right now we are
newsletter, or what do you do?
Right now we are rebuilding our website.
It's not on there yet.
It is, I do believe it's going to be lockeandsmith.org.
And is that "and" spelled out?
Yeah, that will be
the-
"and" spelled out, not the ampersand. I didn't get my way on that one.
Oh, if I go there, it's a potential security risk.
I wanted yeah, because it's not up yet.
Oh, okay.
And so does your website go into detail about the unconstitutionality of the laws, or does it just give the report and the ratings of our elected officials?
If I had my other computer here and I put it on this screen, what you would see is this massive Excel spreadsheet that numbers every single piece of legislation that has worked its way through the House or the Senate. Let's take Senate Bill 70. And I don't know if the governor signed that bill or not, but even if he didn't, it's no big deal. So Senate Bill 70, what we do is when it passes the Senate, just like if this was House Bill 70, when it passes the House, we will read the bill to find out whether or not the bill is actually confined within constitutional applications. Then we will score the individuals and how they voted on it. So if you vote yes on a constitutional bill, you score a point. If you vote no on an unconstitutional bill, you score a point. Because I cannot put myself in somebody else's head, I have no idea why it is that they voted no or yes on it, but their vote is correct. Now it goes to the flip side. The House goes to the Senate goes to the House. So if the bill goes to the Senate, they pass it, it goes to the governor's desk, the Senate will also be scored on that. But let's say the Senate decides to make amendments to it. So once the Senate makes amendments to it, it goes back to the House agrees with those amendments, so the House gets scored twice. It gets scored on the original bill, and it gets scored on the one that they agreed to that the Senate amended. Most of our violations that we find come in Article 1, Section 2, Article 3, Section 21, Article 3, Section 23, Article 3, Section 50. If there's nothing else that you read in the Missouri Constitution, Article 1 is incredibly important because that's where your rights are located. And you all should have jumped on me at that point and said, our rights are not codified in the Constitution. I call them the Bill of Restrictions. Article 1 is the area where the government is hands off, except where we've been stupid. Somebody go look at Article 1, Section 23 and look at the last sentence of what it is that we did to our states, basically Second Amendment. And whoever's the first person there, holler out what that sentence says. Last sentence, what's it say?
Nothing in this section shall be construed to prevent the General Assembly from enacting general laws which limit the rights of convicted violent felons or those adjudicated by a court to be a danger to self or others as a result of a mental disorder or mental infirmity.
Okay, temporarily I'm going to marry you two. So, hubby here decides that he wants to go out drinking. You want him to come home. He stays out all night. You decide the following morning, I'm going to get back at him. I'm going to call the court system and let them know that he's mentally unstable. Court system goes through the process of what it needs to do. Hubby, I'm sorry, your guns are leaving the house. We literally in 2014, 2016, I don't remember which one it was, we codified red flag laws in our state constitution. Are we morons? I know most of you didn't do it. I know I didn't do it. But there's a whole lot of people out there in the state of Missouri who they only saw the first part of that, which included ammo and the other devices, because we got rid of the concealed carry permit, because that used to be part of Article 1, Section 23. And we added ammo and something else in there, but then through the legislature is the one that got that put on the ballot. The legislature is the one that created the application where they get to pass laws, red flag laws, that allow them to violate your right to self-defense, violate your right to carry, violate your right to ownership. That's not supposed to be in there. Marriage should not be in there either. The government has no authority on who it is that I get married to. My grandparents told me they went to the church. The church signed a piece of paper. They went down to the county courthouse, they had it registered. No such thing as a state license existed to get married. We've got the system completely screwed up where we're now granting government the authority to restrict our rights. And we do that two ways. We call them constitutional rights that the judges have said, well, if they're codified in the Constitution, that means they're amendable to our own likings. Or we don't exercise them. Several years ago, we had a gentleman in Springfield who walked into a Kmart, or excuse me, walked into a Walmart with an AR-15. And while he is in the store, I'm talking to a buddy of mine who's also in the store. And I can hear the PA speaker, for your own safety and protection, please evacuate the store. For your own safety and protection, please evacuate the store. The following day, the Springfield News Leader ran an article that said that this dude created all kinds of havoc. Well, no, he didn't. He walked into the store with an AR-15 and some moron got on the PA speaker and said, oh, get out of the building, get out of the building. The most constitutional, quote, air quotes, the most constitutional judge that we have in our area, first thing he did was basically demand that he turned his firearms in to the court. Did the kid violate any laws? No. He was doing what? He was exercising his rights. We've allowed them to run completely roughshod over the Constitution because we don't know what our rights are. Matter of fact, most of us have a violation of rights right now in our wallet. It's called a driver's license. You have the right to travel. You realize the last state to implement driver's license was 1950. So it was not about safety. State of Missouri was the first one to implement a driver's license. You had to go down to the county, pay 50 cents for a piece of paper that said that you could drive. No driving tests, no tests, no nothing. You just went down, paid 50 cents, and you got a driver's license. They restricted your right to travel by whatever means that you decide to travel with by calling it driving. And now you have a driver's license. The Amish have a driver's license too, but they don't have a picture on theirs. Oh, sorry, Mennonites. I call them Mennonites, but there are certain sects of Amish that drive.
Is that in our, are they specific in our Constitution?
What? The Amish?
The Amish or the Mennonites, yeah.
No,
So how are they,
because they willingly complied.
no, but for those who do, oh, never mind.
Can't hear the questions.
Oh, she's talking about Amish being in the Constitution, I think.
Yeah.
The Amish generally are exempt from most governmental things simply because they have what is a predominantly a standing religious exemption. However, if you are part of an Amish sect and you drive, they actually will and you can and are required to go down and get a driver's license. But there's no photo on it because it's against their religious principle to be photographed. And if you know anything about the Amish, there's different sects, and that's SECT, not the other one.
I was gonna say.
So some of them are what you consider, I consider them orthodox. They're hardline. This is the way it's supposed to be. We have no power, we have no electricity, we have no cars, we have no nothing. We have a horse and buggy. This is the way we do things. Those are the Amish that I grew up around in Pennsylvania. Yes.
So some of the exemptions some of those Amish sects have is because they refuse to comply.
Correct.
Maybe there's a lesson in there.
There's a huge lesson in there. Matter of fact, maybe we ought to print up t-shirts that said, "Be Amish." Maybe that's what you need to name the group, "Be Amish."
Will that get us banned on YouTube?
I would like to see, and this is up to you, I would like to see everybody in this room at least follow one piece of legislation next year. I recommend a Republican bill. The reason I recommend a Republican bill is because then you'll get to follow something. It's easy to pick out a Democrat bill and go, oh, it's not going anywhere, I'm done for the year. No, pick out one Republican bill. Just go back. Go back. Go to legislation. Go to bill status reports. Go to all Senate bills first read in the House. Click on any piece of legislation you want. Click on all actions at the top. Everything you need to know about a piece of legislation is right here. It tells you exactly when it was pre-filed. It tells you when it was first read. First read is where we get the original titling. Generally, when your computer is set up correctly, so there's something that's awry in your settings. Well, there is according to this page. Generally, when you click on S25, it literally will take you to Senate page 25. And there's not even 25 pages on that one, so I don't know what it's going to take you to. But those links are supposed to be accurate. They're supposed to take you directly to where it is that that bill was first read. This link should take you directly to page 247, and it should take you directly to Hoskins' amendment and tell you what the amendment is.
I've never searched this way, actually. I go to the journal or I go to the bill itself.
You are on the bill itself.
Well, no, this is in the, yeah, see, this is only 3 of 10. That is weird.
I don't know what the issue is with your computer.
I'm starting to take this personally. So if we wanted to look up SB 3, how?
Okay, we'll do it the way you do it then.
You have to give me a second here. Do you want to see if are there any that passed constitutionally? I mean, do you want to talk about that?
Well, Senate Bill 51 passed constitutionally. That was the one with physical therapy.
Okay. I want to look up SB. Go to Senate.mo.gov. How's anybody else look up one? Oh, pass it out. I'll go to legislation, and I'm more used to doing it on my phone.
Yeah, it's easier to do this on a computer than it is on the phone. But I don't know if you went to the House side, if that would be any different. But I've got cards up here that if you want to take a card, if you want to reach out, who was the gentleman that you're at the We the People meeting that did the legislation talk?
Last summer.
Two of them, yeah, two guys.
Moon and Mayfield.
No, not elected people who were part of the group. There was two gentlemen. You were one of them? Okay. So reach out to him. Andy, that's it. Reach out to Andy and say, hey, Andy, how do I get to wherever this bill is, whatever it's done, how do I get where I know what it is and where it's going? You should always have, in any group, you should always have one person who knows the legislature's websites inside out, backwards, upside down, and 40 ways to Sunday. That way they can't hide anything on you. Because sometimes what will happen is they'll take pieces of legislation that have never been assigned to a committee and they'll put them into a piece of legislation. That's unconstitutional too, but they do it. And unless you're fast enough to catch it, you're not able to call them out on it. People in this area, in reality, should be calling out Barry Hovis for his voting records. People in this area should be calling out the prescription drug monitoring queen for her voting records.
We do.
No, to me, she's the prescription drug monitoring queen.
They call her
We fought her for 8 years on that piece of legislation. And she was hell-bent and determined to make sure that it got passed.
So Tom, while they're searching, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Just
Sure.
a minute, use the microphone.
So and I'm sorry, I don't know the Missouri Constitution well, but is there a law, or I assume it's a law, that would address the issue of the legislators passing over authorities to enact what virtually becomes law to an unelected agency or consult of some kind?
There is this thing, for the lack of a better term, called non-delegatory authority. Here, I'm going to throw you something. I want you to catch it. Okay, she has the keys to my car. She can take my car down to the grocery store. Now, while she's at the grocery store, this one needs to go to a different store. So she then hands the keys to her. That's exactly what happens in our legislature. We've given them the keys. They've decided, since they have our keys, that they can delegate that authority to anyone they want. But if you read, I think it's Article 3, Section 1, or it's Article 3, Section 2, it's one of those where it talks about the legal authority for legislation and law is in the General Assembly. It doesn't say anything about different bureaucracies and different subdivisions and different political subdivisions. It discusses how it is that the ability to create law is codified to the General Assembly and the General Assembly by itself.
So very specifically, for example, the legislators have agreed to comprehensive sex education in our schools, and they have assigned the responsibility of defining what the standards are for that to an unelected or NGO, to non-government organizations. Specifically, I believe it is could be considered even a not-for-profit assignment to a not-for-profit. So that is constitutional?
No.
I mean, it can't, oh, okay.
Remember when Nancy Pelosi said that we have to pass the bill to know what's in the bill? They're doing the same identical thing. Only thing is Nancy was dumb enough to actually say it out loud.
And so you're saying that's covered in Article 3, Section
I believe it's Article 3, Section 1, Section 2, or Section 3. It's one of them because it talks about how the General Assembly is the only body that is granted lawmaking authority.
One.
Oh, is it 1?
It says it right in 1, but it doesn't really go into any more.
The legislative power. What is legislative power? The ability to make law. Shall be vested in a Senate and a House of Representatives to be styled the General Assembly of the state of Missouri. Who has legislative power? Only the legislature. They can't delegate an authority that they don't have to anybody else. But they've been doing it for years because people have been led to believe that's exactly how government works.
Which is why we're here.
Yeah, which is why we're here. Which is why 33 days after the Constitution was signed, I do not believe that we were a republic anymore.
What do you mean? 33 days after what?
After the U.S. Constitution was signed.
How do you say that?
If you go back and you read legislation from states after the Constitution was signed, you have to scratch your head and go, did they actually mean that the people had rights? Did they actually mean what it was that they signed in the United States Constitution? There are laws that go back shortly after the Constitution was signed and penned and written that in reality it was already being violated. I believe it's Article 6, which specifically states that the United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any law that's made in pursuance thereof. Well, in pursuance thereof actually means that whatever law in Jefferson City or not Jefferson City, D.C., has to be codified within the confines of that Constitution. 50% of the Missouri's funding comes from the federal government. Where do they get that permission? And yet, I have not looked at budget bills, nor will I look at budget bills. We did that in 2010. I swear I'll never do it again. But if you look, most people just automatically vote yes on the budget bills, and 50% of our budget comes from the federal government. There's no authority for that. But it's what has always been done. Yes, ma'am.
What bill are you really worried about right now that you would want us, the group, to kind of keep an eye on that might be coming down the pipe? And then 2,
why has it taken us 3 years still to do something about the border? Is there not something in our state that we could do something? I just don't understand this do nothing thing.
The border's a twofold problem. I firmly believe that borders are state borders, which means the state of Texas, state of Arizona, state of New Mexico, state of California should be securing their border. However, there's also this application in the U.S. Constitution which specifically states that the United States government shall secure a Republican form of government to each individual state. Who is it that created the freebies? Why do people come up here all the time? It's not because we're not, how do I say this? They're coming up here, yeah, granted, a lot of them do work. But the fact that the United States government has dictated to the state governments that, hey, we'll do this, 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 and this, you get an influx of people because the good and plenty clause means whatever I need, the government will supply it for me. So the federal government is failing, the state government is failing, and yes, I do believe that Where Mike Parson failed is when the balloon was hovering over the state of Missouri. You know, we have an Air Force base with jets that can get that high. I would have obliterated, but I'm not the governor. But they're allowed to do these things because they believe they are subservient to the federal government. Who created the federal government? The states did. Who created the states? The people did. So if the people allow state governments to do what they want, and the states allow the federal government to do what it is that they want, we're at fault for this. Not you specifically, because it occurred long before you were even born. Trying to correct it is the problem. We can't put 199 Ron Calzones in Jefferson City. We can't put 199 Mike Moons in Jefferson City. I'd like to see 199 Mike Moons up there. But you have to find them. And most people like that aren't willing to run. They want nothing to do with that cesspool up there by the Missouri River. And I can't blame them.
But we can start locally, and we can continue to educate, and we can continue to learn. Right here.
How about the bill? Do you have any bills that you want us to watch for?
I think next year, SB 100, the gold and silver bill, whatever that one is, would be a good one to try to forge it through the system. If there is a right of conscience bill, and the reason I term it that way is because I believe we get caught in the quagmire when we talk about religious exemptions. It's right of conscience. Right of conscience specifically should be, I am not going to allow my body to be dictated by any other man, woman, of what it is that I put into my body. That's my choice, not government's. But yet we've got 90 some odd of those juicing things that they put in your arm on the school schedules just for your kids to go to a government school. I had 6 total. And there's other people in this room that I know that are older than I am. You had 6 total. Now we're up to 90 some odd. And we wonder why kids have the issues that they have.
How about HB 1169, Holly Jones labeling bill?
Start over?
Yeah.
The HB 1169, which was Holly Jones's labeling bill, and I do believe it was meant to label whether or not your food had that word in it that YouTube doesn't like.
Yeah.
Anything that the state can do to allow for the people to have more information at their disposal, I believe is a good thing. But in reality, get to know the people in your community who sell beef, who sell pork, who sell eggs, who sell milk. Stop giving your money, and I don't mean for it to sound this way, but stop giving your money to some out-of-state conglomerate when you can just as easily give it to somebody local who you can run down to the farm and do a spot check and see what it is that they're doing and how it is that they're raising the head of cattle, or how it is that they're feeding their chickens. If you don't have your own chickens and you have property, I highly recommend it. My cat is a world-class chicken herder. She has proven it over and over and over again. She even outclasses the dog, who's supposed to be a herding dog, by the way. But the cat will get them chickens right back in that chicken coop just like that, and the dog runs around just chasing its tail. Get chickens. Co-op a farm. If you have the wherewithal and you have some people who are willing to invest with you, buy some property outside of town. Create your own farm. One of the bills I know this year that's going to get me in trouble is the law, or the bill is going to be that we're going to prohibit people who are from China or from Chinese corporations from buying land in the state of Missouri. And the reason I'm going to get into trouble is, whose property is it? Is it the state's or is it the farmers'? Because Bill Gates scares the crap out of me. And you know what? I would be forced to sell to Bill Gates if I decided to sell my property. There will be no state law that says Bill Gates can't purchase farm property in the state of Missouri. And he's just as bad as those people from overseas. But we're comfortable, I think, in my opinion, we're comfortable with going, well, we don't want Chinese nationalist corporations coming over here buying ag land. But the ag land's not yours. Bill Jones down the road owns 675 acres. He wants to sell it. There are people who are comfortable with using the state to dictate to him, you can't sell it to these certain individuals. And it's hard. Take an argument. This is your argument. Argue around it 360 degrees. Find all the pros, find all the cons, and then try to formulate an opinion which is actually proven liberty. You'll beat yourself up.
Any other questions? It's 6:50.
Okay. Any other questions?
Pre-file.
Yes.
What about you talked about concealed carry, is there anything of that coming up next year? Because it's what they're talking about.
There will be probably one, if not more, constitutional amendments that will go on the ballot. I don't know which one, which probably will basically state that they're trying to give political subdivisions the authority constitutionally to pass gun control rules and laws. It's absolutely unconstitutional.
Who knows what a gun control law is? Because
Well, a gun control law to me is any law that prohibits me from exercising my right, especially to a firearm, is gun control.
Because if somebody comes to my door and asks for my guns, I'm gonna call the sheriff first.
Well, first you need to make sure that your sheriff knows their job.
she does.
Yes.
She does.
Okay.
She's already said she does.
And by the way, that is one thing.
Hand them to them, because I didn't steal them. I paid for them with good working money. I've passed every background check that you can want to give those done. I am not gonna just hand them over.
Well, they'll get my guns when they pry my cold dead fingers from around the trigger. I think that's what the bumper sticker used to say.
Well, it won't get to that, because I won't unlock the thing.
But we have to be careful with what it is that we put in the Constitution.
Yes, we do.
You have to educate people why it is that we can't put unconstitutional things into the Constitution. And for that,
Here we are.
you have Jan.
Me.
Yay!